day wherever you are. I'm hoping this video has just been an easy find for you, that you're continuing on maybe from part 3. Part 3 being a highly respectable video, as my videos go. I'd put all my eggs in that basket. Look, thank you for being here. Thank you for possibly having the faith of your friend to watch these videos and giving it a crack and sticking with them. I understand they might be long, and that the moments that we glean great moments, the salient points might be few and far between, and it's not really my intention. But please understand, my audience is more than just your needs, and there's a lot of people out there that will be hesitant towards taking on board information, or will not believe a source of information, or will that they will need qualifiers along the way. And so it is true that this video needs to be all things to all people, which is of course impossible. You know, you can fool some of the people all of the time, and all of the people some of the time, but never all of the people all of the time, and that's clearly what I'm going for. So I mean, the odds really are stacked against us. So let's double down. Let's take the bet that nobody takes, and let's see if we can play it. Let's see if we can be the house, and if the house can truly win, because the house should win. You know, we defer to authority. We believe in the social structure. We believe in the structure, and that's what gives us a relative sense of safety in this world. And we really want that to go forward. You know, as it is in life, everybody has enough faith in their governing bodies that we hopefully all give our taxes, and we all push the money uphill in such a way that there is an overarching structure that protects us. And whether that be, you know, obviously we want hospitals and healthcare or education. There are certain things that everybody wants and needs, and it's beyond their own personal power to achieve. And so we find that we're actually better as a group, or a constructed whole. And you know, whilst that allows us to double down on our own special skill sets, it also then allows us to again, in a qualified body. You know, you can't just become a heart surgeon without having studied. And we have systems in place that make it so people can't just say that they're a heart surgeon and just walk on in and cut people open and you know, muck around inside them. So everything works because of our trust and our faith in the things that are. But of course, we've had a lot of shocks over the years, and so sometimes we've all become hesitant to trust in these authorities. And I'll give the easy example of the church. The modern church took a lot of flack probably through the 90s. I certainly saw it come to a loggerheads where it became socially cool for people to become solitary practitioners. You know, they'd go out and they'd pick up witchcraft or something that was different. They still needed religion, you know, and maybe we'll use the word spirituality. We generally all have a sense of our own beliefs that we use as a core guidance to allow us to go forward. And at a time when it became in vogue to not be associated with the church in some circles, I think the damage to society there was quite large. But I mean, at the same rate, it got people in a state of inquiry, and it got people willing to look at alternative options, and so there's a lot of personal power in the concept of, say, a solitary religion. You know, and I recall, if you read through a text, you know, and I try to look at all the text. What are other people doing, or you know, certainly if there's something I don't know about, I like to try to understand what the people who believe that, why do they believe that, what's the framework, or what are the blinkers that allow them to continue down that pathway. And I think there's a famous book. It's by a particular guy that I think in the 50s, when the laws backed down, and it might have been the second time the laws had backed down and allowed people to have any religion, and there's one country in particular. And a lot of people came out and went, yay, I'm going to be this. And I think the first time it happened, the law sort of changed back again shortly thereafter. And so that the second time it happened, there was a lot of hesitancy for people to come out and say, hey, I'm this. But one particular person came out and put out a book and made a lot of money. And arguably the crunchy version of, you know, the popular version of it, almost very, very light reading. But when picking up a big book on understanding Wicca, for example, I recall one of the most beautiful parts of it was this notion that if there was an elderly person in your community that needed to get rehoused, that as your group you might get together and you might sort of wish that for them. But it goes on to say that the inherent strength of the vision, who needs it the most, who has the most energy associated to it, who's going to have the greatest wishcraft, if you wish, towards manifesting what they're after. And usually it's the person involved. And so I see, that's the flip side to a community. And so when I see churches, I don't see negative stigma. I see a healthy aspect that society truly needs of people that are pro coming together as a group and being stronger for it, and doing altruistic or things that are beyond their needs selfishly, that they actually want to go out and help people and uplift people. And I've always seen in the church groups that I like to belong to is there's this community aspect. There's this you see people without even needing something to be brought up as a subject, because they're on the lookout to be kind to others, that they literally wish the best for others, and that's a given, and in a community, imagine if other people were just wishing you well, but legitimately, really trying to prop you up. And so there's an example of like two, and they're generally perceived as going in opposite directions. There's this concept of a sense of worship or a sense of structure, if you will, in somebody's spirituality that allows them to operate in a single aspect, which is very empowering because there's no fallibility then in the other members around you, I would imagine. Of course, there's also no support, double-edged sword. And then you go to the more mainstream religions that might have this concept of community down pat, and the support to be found within is just epic. Now, of course, when you've got a large congregation, there's always the opportunity for members of your congregation to be less than ideal in the public lens. And as less responsibility came to journalism, we certainly found that negative or puff pieces was the stuff that people were interested in seeing. And so whether the things in society that need to be redressed and probably should be our focus stayed that way, especially when they could quite often be difficult topics or things that couldn't be easily broken down to the 15-minute segment or a 3-minute segment on the nightly news. I think a lot of those things may have been swept under the rug or not brought to the public's attention with the awareness that they probably needed, or the weighting maybe that those subjects required. And instead we focused on people. And I think it's an old concept. It's great minds talk about concepts, average minds talk about things, and small minds talk about people. So with that, let me start today's video by talking about people. Okay, I'm going to I'll go down a path. So okay, people, I'd like to believe that anyone sitting in front of this lens may have seen my earlier videos and understands that my ultimate goal is to put out a framework, if you will, for the correct way of life going forward. And that is why I'm here. But then you could say, well, why then are you not saying that? Okay, well, for me, this is, say, day 4, and I'm still practicing there, being in front of a camera. And, like, these here are live props, but obviously if I'm going to use them day in, day out, I guess in time, I would prefer to make them plastic props. They would live longer. If I was going to do this for 100 days, these wouldn't survive that long. And in that, guys, having these made out of plastic would be probably more economical to the world if I kept going through these daily. What would be the ultimate cost if I was wasting a lemon and a mandarin? Well, in fairness, I'd like to think I can still eat these. I'm not stressed when I'm holding them. I'm just holding them because they're natural and they're tactile, and I find them very grounding for me. But if it was that I was nervous and I was squishing them and they were breaking, then there would be a cost to replenish these, and eventually it would be better for me to go down the path of plastic. Now, who would need to make that decision? And this is why we need to defer to a sense of authority, so long as authority has this concept of it's looking after us. And if authority then figured out that, the amount of money we're losing in this sector because of these renewable, these parts of infrastructure that need to be constantly replaced, is starting to cost us, maybe we need to change the materials with which they're built, and so we do need to have, for all the things that we don't wish to keep on our radar, that we'd like to leave on beyond our blinkers, that especially if we can trust in said authority to make sure that all of these little things are being maintained and checked and kept up to speed. And sometimes, like one of the things in business, you always need to be aware of the market that you're in and the changes in the world, changes in science sometimes that might revolutionise said markets. You know, you need to be constantly ever vigilant, if you will. Vigilance is like the night watchman. It's but to do the vigil, to be vigilant is to not let up. You know, to be constantly aware of what's going on, and I think we believe in our authority structures, or we defer to other people's genius. You know, and so it's not an individual genius. It's the fact that you've got a lot of brains that come together when there's a governing body, and sometimes, you know, the best board is a board of one. Certainly things get done. I've certainly been on PNC boards or whatnot, and you know, watching the voting and whatnot, and I think I've seen it happen in body corporates with property. And I believe my grandmother actually moved out of one location because she recognised that the last decades of her life were going to be spent with these people, and they were all very, very sad people, very angry people, or whatever underlying emotions that sort of were cropping into these discussions about the property that they lived in. But the discussions weren't about the property they were lived in. These were people who were bored, and these were people that had gotten themselves on a board so that they could be less bored. Yeah, different words there, same pronunciation. Oh, English language, you imprecise thing. So deferring to authority and the concept of structures, and can we trust in them? So let me qualify myself a bit. Let me explain why it is that I don't just jump into the meat and potatoes in any one of these videos. And to be fair, it's personal. I would like to launch and take off at critical mass, but I also don't want to feel that I've put all my eggs in one basket, or I've put all my efforts and energies into something and then not had that reciprocated. That might hurt me at an egotistical level, or you know, where my lotus is. You know, I'm kind of like, wow, I put all my effort into that, and the world just didn't water that, and so then I might fold back in on myself a little bit and sort of be, oh, that's it, I'm done until the sun comes out tomorrow. I'm not doing that anymore. No, I don't want to be that way. In fact, I can't be that way anymore, and that's why I'm daily here, and that's why I'm in front of these lenses and arguably unscripted. And yes, I know that the best internet or the best YouTube personalities that I see, they generally have a checklist so that they can still go in this rant style that I might be doing right now, but they actually push towards a goal, and they do have a script in mind, a loose vehicle, if you will, to get somewhere. And obviously, if we haven't got a destination in mind when we set out, we're probably not going to hit it. So, you know, if we just sail the sea blindly, we're not going to make it to that island of refuge that we so seek. And so I want people to know that I do have a purpose, and I am, whether we can see it or not, if you can trust in what I'm doing, it does have purpose. And I am sailing what might look like a jagged path to an ultimate destination, but in the end we might find that I've actually avoided some jagged rocks along the way because of the path that we have sailed. And that is my intent. I'm doing this very slowly, and I'm introducing things very, very casually, but I'm also qualifying myself a little bit in terms of what are my intentions, and why me, sort of thing. And that is fairly important. So what I was going to do today, if I had a loose framework in mind, was I was going to reference to, I was watching a couple of celebrities actually yesterday on YouTube, and one of them speaks incredible language. In fact, I've independently watched his videos of occasion, and in the comments, I couldn't help but see a lot of people saying, "Oh, I'd love to learn to be able to speak like that. I'd love to use those sorts of words in that language." And to be honest, I actively try to go the other way, so as not to be hard. Look, I've hung out in some areas where people's vocabularies are not very wide, and if you use certain language, you ostracize yourself. Oh, there you go. There's a word with a few syllables in it. Oh my lord! But I think we all know what ostracize means, and I alienate myself. I put myself on the outside when I'm not one of us. And so trying to use very normal language or very easy language and is my goal, because I'm trying to have a very wide audience, and it's very much the wrong way to be doing this at this stage in the game, because I I need to really be appealing to people that I'm the sort of person who needs to be handshaking with authority figures and governments. And if people don't have faith in me as being capable of doing that, or putting the important topics first and addressing everything without blinkers, such that we've got the totality in play and how everything relates to each other, and addressing it properly. And anyway, there's certain things that need to therein happen, and I'm digressing. That when I look at these celebrities, and a lot of compliments towards the way these people were speaking, and then one person. So you always love to look at the opposite side of things. I love to play devil's advocate too, and so please don't ever take the fact that I explore ideas. I do explore ideas. I will often sit on the fence if you think, or I'll even run in the opposite direction for a little bit to see, well, how easy is it to run in this direction? How is it that people fall into these pitfalls, for example? And reading down these comments and finding a negative one, and it was along the lines of, well, this person's been using that dialogue for decades, and in that regard it's like an autopilot script. And that is certainly the case. That can happen. And I'd like to say, I mean, I don't have the script per se, but I've had a vision in my mind for more than a few decades, couple of decades, couple meaning two, few meaning three, and I haven't quite got to the 3-decade mark. But to say that I've been, say, refining said thing, well, I haven't been refining it. I've always been just checking against a model in my head, and arguably it's a practice spiel, if you will. That is to say that vision is so real and so legitimate, and it's never faltered, and it's never waned, it's never become less, or it's something that is very real, and its lack of variance tells me that it's probably it is a tangible construct. It's just in the dimension of time. In the ABC reality, it's at step C, and presently I'm at step A, trying to say, hey, it exists, and I'm trying to encourage everyone to get to the step B, of which we build it. And I think in quantum physics we actually say, or we see, that the ABC existence actually exists all at the same time, and that is the nature of time. Time is what stops all the events from happening simultaneously. We experience time in the dimension where it goes forward, but in the universe as it exists, the ABC reality, that is, you conceive, we need a bridge, you build a bridge, and then the bridge exists, is the A, the B, and the C, and I'm very much in this position at A. I'm pitching a concept, and I'm hoping we get on board with it, and in a very small amount of time, I'd like to think in the next couple of weeks, we start getting a ball rolling such that we start building it, and obviously the ultimate goal being that we all live in a different landscape, and the landscape can technically be the same physical landscape, but just a different environment, if you wish. And in that regard, it'll be like an overlay over our existing world, where things are just different, and it's changed. And I think the nature of a paradigm shift is it is impossible to see the world through that last lens that you used to see things through. Like if you believe the world was flat, once we learnt the world was round, you don't go back to believing that the world is flat. And a really reassuring thing for any watchers that aren't into science is all through history, we have paradigm shifts all the time. We have breakthroughs in our learning, or the changes to the way that we think, and that's pretty much a given. And so this notion that we're living in a world and we really believe that the world is the way that we think it is, and therefore we believe that the future is going to be based off the world the way it is now, that's a premise that, I mean, it probably isn't a good one. I mean, it's great to operate that way, but it's probably not likely. And it just depends on the scale of time that we look. And so maybe in my lifetime things don't change up, but by the time my child is in their stage in life where I am now, the landscape of living might be very, very different. And so it's strange. It would be wrong for me to believe that I need to prepare for her in the world based on the way the world is now. But of course that is the way that we presently operate across the globe. All families, we go, oh look, we've got to squirrel some money away, and we've got to do this and we've got to do that, because it's always, historically, it's always shown to be a successful strategy. And so look, I want to develop some successful strategies, but of course, how do we know it's successful? We don't know until we get to the other side. And so the nature of rolling out a strategy means really we're testing it. And like any good scientific principle, you have a premise, and then you carry it out, you do some experiments or some observation, and in the feedback you then get your results. You make a conclusion, if you will. You come to some sort of exacted outcome, and you go, hey, and if it's repeatable, well, that's when we consider it scientific, when we can do the same thing over and over again. And so in that regard, it will look like I'm a fan of science. And I'm probably not. I'm probably more a fan of philosophy. I think that the highest that society has ever been is operating under the Greek times, where people sat around and they came up with concepts, and the concepts weren't about people. It wasn't like, Mr. Jones down the road is, he's cutting the tree that grows over his neighbour's fence, and and all the tirade of social, the neighbourhood dramas that come with that. That's of no relevance, and that's certainly not worth talking about on a video to the whole world. If it was relevant to anyone, it would be people on my street. That's not the purpose of these dialogues, and this is why I seem to go further afield. So what is the core? Let's come back to a core. And I want people to believe that I'm capable of bringing us forward and holding a train of thought in such a way that we progress. And personally, on a video basis, you, the viewer, you need to be rewarded. You're investing this time, and unless I give you a joke or an aha moment every so often, what are the rewards I'm giving you? And dopamine's a great one, but I'm not a funny bastard. I'm not. So I'm going to try and walk down the factual path. But the problem is, if I'm going to try and qualify myself as a scientist, there are better scientists out there, and I'm not going to try to be the best at anything. In fact, I'm not going to try and misrepresent myself to be an ultimate authority in any area, and I think that's my greatest strength. And I take this from some of the best business people over the last 100 years, and they have this attitude of, I don't need to learn this. I can hire the people who can do that, and that's always been my attitude. I love the concept of building software, but to learn programming, that's not my. Why dedicate my whole life to be a programmer? I would want the best programmers, and the chance of me dedicating my life to programming and then being the world's best programmer, it's not going to happen. But if I've got a great idea and I've got money behind me, I can get the world's best programmer. And so what is this concept of having money behind me? Okay, well, I do need money behind me. Money brings power, and as wrong as that is, money brings force. So power is inherent to a person, or power is inherent to. Look, let's not talk about power versus force, but Hawkins, if you want to learn about power versus force, please do. That's a vital basis, I guess, from which I operate. Is what are the subtle differences between something that is beautiful and something that is horrible, and so money is quite a forcible solution to many a problem, and arguably I want money, but I want people to believe that my intention in terms of how I would choose to use said money would be to use force for the right reasons, and dare I say, to be Machiavellian, to win at any cost. I think I've expressed across these videos that I believe that trust should be given, and I've given a lot of speech to suggest I'd be a very, very soft person, and you can't have that in a leader. You need your leaders, and there's a reason why I think there's an associated rate between sociopaths or the psychotic mindset and how successful that is in business, when basically you can switch off the needs of the human workers that are the humans that might be your customers or the workers, and if you can actually just strip that away from having any weighing over your conscience while operating, you're very successful at making more money for said business, and I think we need less of that in the world. But at the same rate, we don't want to promote people to the top of a structure if they can't do the job. And the problem is, if there's any weakness at the top, then the structure can be toppled. And so I think I need people to realise that I'm strong. And so really, I know that I should be coming with a collared shirt. And this hair is straight away as an archetype just says, not strong. How much social stigma is there to the curly-haired, red-headed male? Oh, my Lord. Oh, dear, dolphins cry. I understand, I expect within 2 weeks I'm probably going to shave my head, but more so as a feedback loop to those that have started to follow me. And so there's going to be a moment where I'm going to see that one of my videos has been watched. And once my videos have been watched, I have a feeling that maybe a couple of them will get watched. And it might be 1 in 100, 1 in 100,000 people. Somebody will finally pick these up and go, yeah, look, I'm going to watch. That first one was a bit hard to watch, or they might find the third one first, and they're like, oh, okay, that was easy I was able to watch it, but yeah, that was a bit of a time sink. But somebody might pass these videos on, they might take off, and there might be an aspect of virality to them, and when I can see that, I think I'll be motivated to commit more. Now, that's actually impossible, because there's nothing greater than 100%, and I'm pretty much in for 100%. In the past, I've wanted to be in for 100%, but I haven't done so, and now it's about motivations. Now I've got no option. You know, there's nothing else. There's a lot of other things I could do, but there's no other way forward. And I know this. I've known this for decades, but the world needs it. We need healers, and so imagine a healer at a business level. You know, so what are the sort of healers? I mean, far out. I look at healers, and I'm going on a tangent now. So that's what today's video is going to be. It's going to be just like video 1 and video 2. I'll go around a bit, and hopefully we form a circle, and hopefully I close down any open threads, open aspects of dialogue or concepts, such that we can get closure. I don't want to leave people fatigued. I don't want to get to the end of a video where people go, what was that about? And then having to rewind a bit, going, yeah, you didn't finish that statement. Oh man, I'm thinking about that now, and I just need closure. I don't want to leave people fatigued. I do want to get these loops to go somewhere, but I guess like any person, I can become too aware of myself, and then my mind will slip, and I don't want to turn it on myself. So I'm just going to take a moment to pause and enjoy this wonderful morning. I don't know if people get to hear the bird song that goes on outside of my window when I'm doing these, but it is always the start of the day, and I am 100% committed. And at the moment we see it early in the morning, in the day, when I come in and do these little videos, and right as the sun gets up, and that's where yesterday's video I kind of got a little bit bright, because I'd gone past what I expected was going to be my time, and so the video might have been hard to watch, but it's really about my voice. And so in that regard, yes, I know I'm not using a microphone, and I do plan to upgrade the method, these videos shortly, and even down to the fact that these will get edited. You know, so this video in its unedited form is what I put up, but I'd like to think by the second week mark, if I've had a takeoff on day 9 or some such, that by day 11, because of having a little bit of infrastructure with me, a supporting team if you wish, that I've actually got the hours of the day to sit down and possibly look at these other things and edit them. And I don't go into the editing process at the moment, because it to me that's the energy. I'm trying to put the energy forward, and to look back at myself and look what I have just done, apart from becoming self-aware, which is really the last thing I need to do right now, is it feels like the energy is stagnating for me. So I just really want full speed ahead, and so I'm just going to keep pushing forward. And so I put out a lot of ideas, and a lot of the ideas to which I say they all belong to a greater whole, and they exist in that greater whole very well and very beautifully. But when spoken about individually, they then need to be challenged, because when you can't see the greater whole that's going to support them and hold them up, it just doesn't make sense. And I'll give an example that I keep referring to giving everyone a house, and there's a lot of economy associated with that people can at any point change their dwellings to essentially at any given moment. It's like, it's not rent, but there's an amount each week that is associated with the costs of any given level of domicile. And so whatever people have an overly positive balance that they and the trajectory for them, the training modules that they've done show that their ability to generate further income going forward, that is, if they keep just doing a couple of hours a day of their given skill sets that they've developed, that their worth is such that we can predict going forward if they're going to live for an average amount of time, that they're going to net this much, and so we can preemptively give them something different, and they might wish to change up their dwelling, and the higher, the greater whole will have systems in place that will actually go, well, we don't have a lot of availability at the moment in terms of property, so we need to stimulate a little bit the constant shuffling around, because wherever there's a shuffling around, there's a vacancy, and wherever there's a high vacancy rate, we're not using, if we're short on dwellings, we're not using said dwellings effectively. So what you do is you make it unattractive to do that. By that, you just simply attach more of a cost, and so people still have the ability to transition their houses to something different, and always, but how much of a balance does that then incur is the arguable thing, and so obviously you let people know up front that at the moment, there's a weighing to this, and it's attracting a loading on it that's more than normal as a disincentive. So that people can go, oh yeah, I could put it off another 2 weeks. It was really just a casual interest, a casual inquiry. So, and I haven't fleshed that idea out here. Again, it belongs in a greater whole, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that when I put forward suggestions like I'm soft, like give everyone trust, that would allow people to have lack of faith in me as a board member. And the same for a lot of the things I say is, especially when I play devil's advocate and I'll sit on the fence, or I'll run with a concept that I don't necessarily believe in these social videos, it means that people might therein lose faith in me. So, okay, I'll make it about me for a second and I'll qualify why me. One of the incredible moments in my life, and again, talk about angel on your shoulder or a lit, illuminated path in front of me. It was amazing, all the little coincidences in life that, dare I say, the reward of living in this universe is very beautiful. It just depends if you see it or not, and I guess if you're looking, whatever you're looking for, you'll see. Observation bias. But I've always seen the universe as inherently beautiful, and whilst a lot of the aspects of my life have been difficult in the time when I've been going through them, certainly when you reflect back on them, you can see them for the wonderful things that they were. And one of the jobs I took on board was a business, and it was created by a business person of the year here in our country. And basically what they did is they came up with, how do you create the handbooks for operations for a really large organisation? And a parallel, okay, the concept, and the concept's been done lots of times. If you look at some of the biggest burger franchises on the planet, they're run by 16-year-olds. Now, why is it that they can be run by young teenagers? And that's because when a person comes on shift, or when a person's learning their role, they've got these training modules, and these training modules will actually, point for point, list every single thing that person has to do, and give references to pages where, okay, so, at this time of day you mop the floor. Okay, well, how do I mop the floor? Okay, this page. Okay, are you qualified to use the mop? Oh, yep, cool. So I can mop the floor. Okay, I've got to get the bucket from the back. I've got to put the water in it. Okay, we use hot water. We use a ratio of this to this. There's a mixture that goes into it. I'm meant to go over the floor twice. Meant to wash it down once. Step by step. And everybody can do their job now, without micromanagement, without constantly having to have a costly employed position over their shoulder, making sure that all these things are carried out. Now, of course, these franchises, these burger franchises, fast food franchises, if you will, so I'm not giving attention unduly, unneeded, they're not, of course, just run by 16-year-olds. In fact, we find in a world where there's a lot of people that will take any job, any person of any age. I mean, I've worked in jobs where you've got the entire age range from teenagers from 17 all the way to people beyond retirement who've come out of retirement because their son's clocked up a gambling debt and they just need, they had living expenses they weren't expecting in that stage of life, and they've needed to turn that around, and they've taken active steps towards doing that. So they've taken on a really uncomfortable job that most people be like, why are you doing this at this stage in your life? And so, look, anybody should be capable of doing just about any role, and it comes down to having a handbook in place or having systems in place where anybody can get the skill set needed to do said role. And there are so many ways that we can construct, artificially if you will, the focus of people to do different aspects of jobs, and so in the current paradigm, it's usually pay incentives, or I gave an example in an earlier video that you can change the entrance requirement at any given tertiary institution, university, making it lower or higher to basically set a cut-off point, going, okay, we need more light bulb changes. So the course requirements for getting into light bulb changing this year, we've dropped down quite dramatically. And then when you've got too many light bulb changes, you actually raise the bar of light bulb changes. And in the last video I'd given, I think when I left school, the difference of just 2 years was that the requirement to get into nursing was as hard as some of the top level courses previously, and teaching was really, really quite low. And then within 2 years, teaching had actually taken up like a shift of more than 25% on the scale, significant shift, basically going from the bottom and the top to the bottom and the top, and just being flipped around in a period of just 2 years. 2 years. So there's a lot of ways that we construct artificially or keep the carrot in front of the donkey and keep everything moving in the direction that we want. And it comes down to trusting authority and this concept that it is all for our greater good. And so far we've been living lives that way, and this comes back to where I was saying at the start of this video, is the abuse of authority, and the benefit of having a paradigm shift or a great reset that is actually a proper reset, including a consciousness reset, is that there's a lot of healing. Healing is imminent, okay? Healing is inbound. If the B, if the A, the B, the C, if the B part of it, of actually making this happen, starts to happen, we all start to get shoulder to shoulder with a lot of people that will allow us to start to heal. A lot of healing inbound. So, yeah, when abusive authority gives us reason to not have faith in authority, and we've all been hurt, so we all kind of shut off to that, and we lose faith in that. So why should anybody have faith in me going forward, especially if I'm showing signs of softness or signs of not being the smartest or most capable person for a position? And I understand why we've trained our brains to certainly constantly look down at things, or constantly look at the, oh, okay, they're offering us this, what's the catch, you know? That is the way we have to survive in this world. And in fact, fostering those qualities is why we're quite likely all where we are. That's good natural selection, you know, climb to the top of the ladder because of successful ways of living. And successful ways of living is to question and so I guess question sometimes cautiously or tentatively. I mean, you know, if you've never experienced fire and you want to reach out and touch it, you know, probably the first time you're probably not just going to put your whole hand in. You're probably like many a small child, taking those little steps away from their parent for the first time, little steps cautiously, and always being ready to run back to the safe shelter of where you've just come from. Well, I don't want any concept of running back to the safe shelter from which we've just come from, because that's sort of the purpose of one of my videos, was to say there is no safe shelter that we're currently in, and there's no option to go back to some constant, you know, like, this isn't working for us, we'll just go back to the other way. No, trust me, the other way is working less for us, and even if that's being manipulated so we can't see that just yet, when the house of cards topples, it's a case of when one thing goes, it all kind of starts to go, and yeah, then everything will become very obvious or very overt very quickly, that the current structures really aren't working for us. And at the moment, we keep moving the goalposts, and we keep shuffling up, and we keep making people look over here when stuff's happening over there. Look, we're really great at that, but it hasn't been working for us. It's actually been diminishing our trust in authority, and it's making us, coming back to what I said about journalism, when there was professionalism in journalism, journalists would actually sit on a story and go, is it socially right to release this information right now? And that was done for the right reasons. And nowadays it's like, can I beat everybody else to the punch with this article? Whether this article needs to be released or whether this article is damaging, it doesn't matter, because my 5 minutes of fame or my 15 minutes of fame might just happen, or I might have more money for my children if I do this ruthless, or probably might not be unethical. You know, people don't do these things consciously. Again, they're just programmed to, oh look, I've just got to be quicker than the next person, I'm going to do this. I don't want to operate from any of those positions, and I don't want to operate from a rushed position. So really, I mean, I know I should have started 20 years ago, and even then, I felt the need was so rushed that it was crippling. It was very hard for me to feel socially responsible. I mean, right living. You know, I live in a world, and I've got a few different skill sets, and so if I go off to a job that isn't very satisfactory for me, and isn't very rewarding at any aspect of a person's development, and it's got maybe fair remuneration, but quite likely not. But sticking said jobs out because of responsibilities, you know, and so I've always done that. But when I work for myself, I earn about minimum 4 times the wage of what I would earn if I was in the best paid professions that are probably worthy of my skill set as given by a piece of paper. That is, you've earned this much money in the past, and we can see that you're employed at this level as management or whatever. So we can see you as that. You know, people don't look at your past and go, okay, well you've never been the chief executive officer of a company before. You know, what qualifies you to this role? And I mean, there's a lot of parents out there and quite legitimate parents out there. Please, when people are saying what qualifies you to this role, man, so much of the skill set that you've developed in terms of time management and micromanagement and management. Being a parent is incredible, and look, and I've got biases too, and so when I qualify myself to people, I really want to put it out there. I mean, I was raised by a single mum. I think I'm actually, in some regards, I'm for equal rights for men, and what a controversial thing to say. but please in context. I don't deny that that in more than 70% of scenarios there's got to be better rights for women, but there are a couple of scenarios where things don't really work out for men, and that can be custody or rights for children and the defaulting in court systems to the fact that the mother is naturally the better parent. There's a few areas where men's rights aren't that strong, but I wouldn't go around championing men's rights at all. Well, maybe, but again, in context, please, and there's a lot more that has to be done for a lot of the classes in society that currently not treated fairly or not treated correctly. So yeah, like my biases are, I actually think women are the smarter species, and I say this from a science background. It comes down to the corpus callosum that links the left and right hemispheres. We talk about people being able to multitask. Well, no, we alternate quite quickly between tasks, and the human brain is incredible, and so yeah, we switch quickly, and it looks like we're multitasking, but no, you do multiple things. You don't do any one particular thing well. I had a boss once. He was an ex-aircraft mechanic, and he insisted when I worked for him, do not multitask. You do one thing, you do it well, move on from that task, and I think that's fairly important. But when I come to describing the power, I wish these dialogues did one task and did it well, and then moved on. But yeah, when I look at the biological structure of the female brain, the corpus callosum, which links the left and the right hemisphere, is so much wider in the female brain. And so when I liken that onto a computer, that's the bus, right? So the bus is, it's like a plumbing analogy. Your throughput is as great as the weakest link or the thinnest point. And so when the width, if you will, between the left and the right hemisphere is so incredibly wide, the capability of computing, it's like men are, if we were computers, we're like 16-bit computers or 32-bit computers, but if we're 32-bit, we're a very basic design. And women are clearly 64-bit supercomputers, but incredibly, I mean, the world probably, if we evolved, if we started, and there's a lot of evidence to suggest, and don't get me wrong, I have a religious background, but I wouldn't go around saying that the Old Testament is in any way factual. There might be facts in there, but to say that any book is 100% true, any book, including our books on science, paradigm shifts happen. Sometimes we've got blind spots, but what was I saying? Historically, I shouldn't have brought up religion. My apologies. 3 things you never bring up, and obviously I want to talk about politics. And I think religion's important in terms of societal construct, and I think there's a lot of people out there that need to understand my backgrounds in order to believe in me. And certainly if I do the horrible thing of mentioning something like Wicca, which is an instant turn-off for 70% of my audience or so, and I know some very salient statistics, I'm having faith that the people who are sticking with me, and maybe I'm qualifying my audience, maybe I'm trying to flick a few of them away in these early stages to try and find people that are a bit more resilient to, or a bit more thick-skinned, or a bit more capable of just flowing dynamically and being part of a conversation, not agendicized to an outcome, but able to be present in the moment. I guess I really do want to, in the first, if I was out in the field each day working, I'd want to be surrounded by a bunch of people a bit like that. So I think that would be what I'd be choosing. And so yeah, I'm probably trying to qualify that a little bit in terms of where I start up and where I transmit these videos. So going back to the corpus callosum, or the fact that we can see that we're evolved. So I did take a tangent for a second there, and I just want to say that it's not a bigotrous belief, or it's not an unevolved belief, or it's not that I'm being simple-minded when I say these things. I'm being very legitimate. That I think for me, the realisation, I was doing a medical degree, it was natural medicine, if you will, and I actually left it because the mother of my child actually was studying the same thing, and I was actually just doing natural medicine, so the skill set would be available to my family. And so we didn't need both of us to do that. And so it's, with me with an IT background, I could earn more money, and certainly with a pregnancy and the family, it made sense. Go out and earn a crust, give up the passion of learning something that's absolutely life affirming, and just do that. Anyway, one of the fun things of being a student is education. Is just if you're into something that you're learning, it's actually exciting to learn it. And I would sit through the lectures and the courses beyond my year, and I'd look at a lot of the things they talk about, and it would just blow me away. Like, that we have a single hydrogen atom in every ladder of our DNA, and the little bonds between. Anyway, I'll come back to that. For those who want to learn about the magic of the universe, there's so much incredible stuff to talk about. But I guess that should be on a totally different channel if you wish. And I'd love the profundity of that. That for me would be after hours communication with the people in my life that I love to chat with. But coming back to the physiognomy of people that show we evolved, it was for me it was very easy to see. It was in the cranial nerves. And our first cranial nerve is the olfactory sense, and it's hardwired, right? It's no cognizance before, in the sense of what we smell. There's no sort of feedback loop elsewhere in our brain that can have an interpretation stage before that. It literally is just hardwired, and you can actually see that if we started off as a single cell being in an ocean and we kind of eventually evolved, that initially it was our sense of smell that probably guided us along, and we probably had a little tail, which might have been, what is now our spinal cord, and it probably propelled us. And at some point we developed the ability to not just smell things, we decided to be able to see things. And with the development of a light receiving system, be it we might have started with a pineal, I don't know, but when you look at the cranial nerves, you can actually see, based on the way cranial nerves 2, 3 and 4 operate the eye, you can see that we transition from being prey to being predator, right? That there was a stage where we kind of needed to see everything around us, and then eventually we've just sort of gone, no, now I'm hunting. So, look, I definitely see, so those are the religious people out there. I just want to offset, please acknowledge that, okay, let's accept that if there were 7 days of creation, they're days. They're biblical days. They might have been days as they were based to God, because if Moses was literally, if Genesis as a book was written based on Moses being up a hill and communing with the burning bush, he wrote up a lot of stuff, and that's what we call the first couple of books of the Bible. And in Genesis, which was, Moses' transmission with God, he wrote, in day 1, God created this. Okay, well, what was a day? If you haven't got a construct of time, and whatever being was creating things, if there was one, and, the Bible would say there is, anyway, it's pretty evident that those days, they might have been millions of years. Who knows? Who knows what the time scale was? And so, look, I don't want to turn around and say, the universe was created in 7 days, as our sun and our planet goes around the sun, because that wouldn't make sense. The universe isn't our planet. And as much as, the Christian church always wanted us to be the centre of the universe and whatnot, obviously that isn't the case. And so whatever concept of a day was back then, maybe there's a bigger sun out there, maybe our universe, our galaxy spirals around, or maybe there's a greater concept of what is a day, maybe whatever Moses transmitted with, whatever conscience, higher energy it was, be it the Godhead, maybe some of the terms aren't spot on, but maybe the transmission was right, So, look, there definitely has been an aspect of evolution in the human beings, and so maybe that was, the day that we were created is the evolution, and it certainly kicks in around about cranial nerve 10, which is where it's incredible cranial nerve, that one, and it's like that's probably where our consciousness of ourselves probably began. From what I can see, in terms of, obviously it looked like we changed up the way that our modus operandi, our way of being, our way of operating, I should say, also changed around cranial nerve number 10. Okay, so why do I say all this? Okay, well, I guess I'm qualifying. When I look at the evolved female brain, it would have come about with this awareness of the moon. The female body has cycles in alignment with the moon, and so while the male brain was busy scratching in the dirt with its speary stick and contemplating its navel, the female, with the whole birth cycle and being aware of the greater universe and their connection to it, there's a reason why all of the early, be it pagan churches or power circles, all put a matriarch at the absolute top. And I find it crazy that in business it's considered that a female at the top is a weakness because of the fact that they're an emotional being. And the reality is that the only thing that I could bring from all this dogma that we've got that men are somehow better in business is that, okay, yes, if a female was to fall pregnant, and that's I say fall pregnant, what a crazy term, if a female has the gift of life happening, and probably conscientiously, like these things don't always happen by accident, but whatever, that yes, they might be off work for a bit, And and if you put them in a position of power that nobody else can do their role at work, being without them could put you in a weaker position in the market. So right from the get-go, everything about the construct that I'm going for is that every single workplace position can be replaced, that every single workplace position has a book such that people can come in and continue doing, like, where's the mop? There's the mop. What do I do with the bucket? That's what I do with the bucket. That we can actually do this. And this is the crazy thing, is that nobody's trying, based on all the things we know that are successful, to incorporate them all together and to put them together as a package and to make them work. Now, intuitively, I've done a pretty good block here today, and I'd actually ask that if you want to, hit pause. I could hit stop and I could record a second video, but I'm not going to. I'm going to keep going. But I'd like to take a little bit of a change in direction, but instead of seeing it as a change in direction, let's just call it a continuance of the direction. But it's we're going to talk about different topics, and if anything, it's just healthy for my brain to be able to navigate this minefield of what is sharing a large amount of information and doing so in a meaningful way. And it is a little bit tricky. If it's daunting to get in front of a camera and to not know what you're going to say. And literally, that's what I'm doing at the moment. My method of doing these is to shove such a hot, fiery poker in a motivatory method to make me go forward. Is that the absolute? It literally is just the headlight moment where as an animal, I'm just going to run out in the highway, the headlights coming at me, and it's this moment of thrive or die, and I'm choosing to thrive. So I'm going to feed the tiger of positivity, and I'm going to operate in a method that we're moving forward, and whether this energy is inherently mine or whether it's backed by angels or aliens or lizard people, or if those gaseous balls in the sometimes night sky, but more so day sky, but just so illuminatedly brilliant that we don't even see them. Oh, I guess we do, but don't look at them. It's not good for you. If there's some sort of a divine energy out there, or something that's greater than what is our very limited intellect, which is held back by a society of fear and stress, nothing thrives in the current environment. That there's really going to be something greater than humanity. And we can see the intelligence in animals, and we can see that squids are highly intelligent, and dolphins capable of entertainment and joy, rape. I mean, holy shit. And to quote, I think it was Jordan Peterson had this beautiful thing, and he said, he was talking about evil, and he was talking about the problem with when you're capable of creativity, and you know what is capable of causing you hurt, the penchant or the capability towards great hurt, or conceptually evil, humans are capable of some great hurt. And in that regard, I think we really need to heal. I think the first thing we need to do is to heal. And everything about the motivations for why I do this is that it's not necessarily that environmentally we need this, or it's not necessarily that we need to turn worthless land into more valuable land, and it's not necessarily that I believe Australia needs a movie industry and lots of sound stages and things that are beyond what we currently have, because the world just can't create content quick enough. There's so many more aspects to why we need to do this, and fundamentally it comes down to, I see myself as a healer. Now, okay, what are my qualifications for that? Well, let's just say I don't have any, right? Let's set expectations low, because then I'm going to shine, aren't I? I'm going to go beyond what you feel that I'm capable of. When I looked at alternative tribes, alternative civilizations, what was the healer in other societies? And the one that really profoundly stuck out to me was the shaman. And so this is, I guess, mysticism. This would be my belief. I'm a holistic spiritualist, and that term was coined partly by my mother, who very much turned against the church, and it was crazy. I mean, I was going to Christian schools all through growing up, and my mother was quite annoyed at the fact that I suppose she saw me as having religion, And for her, that was probably a deep pain. And she was, oh, you spiritualist, you know, and she used it as a negative term. And I thought, well, no, spirit is actually the best in terms of any religion. You know, the concept of spirit, I thought was great. You know, we're beyond our bodies, our carbon-based life form aspect. You know, that there's an eternal truth to us, an eternal energy, if you will, and it goes on and it's beyond just this finite time now. And so a lot of people out there have no concept of religion, or they have no concept of, you know, no, you get a very short innings on this earth and that's it. Look, too much in my life would suggest that as energy we're going round and round in circles over these greater time periods. And it's like, and there's a lot of people out there theorise that in one lifetime you're the father and your daughter and everything around, and in a different energy time, a different time period in time, you actually, all the relationships muck around. It's like we play out all things to all people. I'm not putting weight on any of these things. But when I looked at alternative religions, if you will, and I looked at who are the healers in some other societies, in primitive societies, and so I was defining holistic spiritualist. So spiritualist, not such a big concept to wrap a head around, and holism is that everything's connected. And I'd called myself a holistic spiritualist for about 20 years before I found out, and it's a really groovy term. It's like, it said mystic, and a mystic, and by definition was holistic spiritualist. I was like, I can get two words down to one. And gee, mystic sounds great, doesn't it? It's one of those things that, you know, if you're trying to pick up a chick at a bar, you know, your partner, whatever your bias is, I'm in a bar, I'm trying to pick up a bloke, I don't know. And it's like, and I can see that they've got a really nice ring of Scorpio or something on, and I think, okay, talking astrology might work with this person. And I don't operate this way at all. I don't believe in manipulating people or putting on a facade to gain ground in a particular topic. But, you know, the concept of being able to say I'm a mystic would be like, well, tell me more. You know, that sounds exciting. And we all like excitement. But it's completely not exciting. In fact, I would say, if anything, I'd be a Christian mystic because my basis for religious construct is under the, you know, I don't know if it's Rosicrucian, Church of the Rosy Cross, but certainly things like the Grail, the Knights Templar, these are resoundingly strong energy constructs to me. And whether it's the fairy tale books I read that reinforce concepts of bliss and joy at a beyond intellectual level, for me that's my Novocaine, if you will. I've never had Novocaine. I just know of a song, Novocaine for the Soul, and at that point I'm thinking, I want some joy for my soul. And so for me, the notion that this empirical existence we live in of unhappiness isn't the bounds of everything that contains us. I don't know. Maybe it's a great myth or a great piece of poetry. But I subscribe to that. Anyway, so I'm being a mystic, a holistic spiritualist. I'm just letting my attention flow, you know. Energy flows where attention goes. And so at this point, my energy was flowing into what were alternative tribes, healing, essentially. You know, I was looking at what does society need? And it looked like in primitive tribes, in order for a healer to be effective, the shaman effectively would live on the outside of society and then kind of point its finger at it and laugh and basically see what's wrong with it in such a way that when people come to said healer with problems that they can actually say, well, this is what's wrong for you. And the problem is when we live inside of something, we're too close to it. And as a parallel, we'll get away from religion because it's such a hard topic. Think back to being in primary school or high school, and a couple are together and they're bickering and whatever else, and they both love each other dearly, but the dialogues are getting in the way of them actually being able to love each other. And any third party to that interaction can easily see, it's like, oh man, if you guys could just take one step back, this would be so easy. So I guess fairly early in my developmental mindset, I took the stance that I would wish to be a healer. But I quickly realised that would mean removing myself from society in terms of if you're part of it, you're too close to it and you can't really experience it. You can't see it for what it is. The mirage exists, or, you know, the illusion continues. And so for me, it was fairly important to become the shaman, if you wish. And so I probably identified with, there was a band called The Shaman in the 90s, and I don't know if they're quoting Terence McKenna or some such, but there's a song on one of their albums, and it just explains what a shaman is. And that really was like, yeah. But I mean, do we need drugs to open our brains? No. Drugs, the chemistry of everyone's brains a little bit differently. For some people, and I don't know if people are ADHD, which I sort of see as a superpower. If society could nurture and not say that you're not really whatever, you're probably really having an adrenal response and you've got some nervous lock in your body, and you might have been born in a nervous state and you've always just hit the ground running and you've never stopped being nervous, and therefore you've the almost adrenaline level of mind just constantly flicker. You operate a certain way, and we give it a medical term, and that's it, and we move on. And when I studied psychology, it was the same thing, and in fact, it was great because I'm not a great student. I don't hand in my work. I do the learning, but I just can't sit down and waste time reflecting on the learning on an ego-based feedback loop to say, oh yeah, you did learn that. I know I learned that, so I just move on. But as a great student that I typically am, I've repeated a few years or a few classes throughout my life, and what I would watch in psychology, favourite class ever, was that the new students always, by about week 2, week 3, and I saw this again when at different bodies of education, I quite often found myself at the newbie level again, or that you'd always find that there'd be a couple of new people new to the class, and as soon as they'd pick up a psychological textbook, they'd freak out because of all the language that's used to describe these mind states. They'd go, I feel like I've got all these things, I feel like I've got that, I feel like I'm that, I feel like I'm that. And that's just the nature of language. And that's just the nature of, we use these words to describe the things that are. And I guess what I'm trying to allude to here is that when you take a step back and you rob yourself of swimming in the language and swimming in all these constructs, you get a better chance of seeing things for how they really are. So my apologies for not making a lot of eye contact here. I feel deeply embarrassed when I say I'm an alternative sort. But to quote a great Russell Brand clip, I think he put it out, might have been start of the year, he's just like ringing a gong, he's gone mad. And then all the quotes in the thread are like, well, this is good, because, and I think his actual prominent point, or a point that went with that, was along the lines of, because being sane isn't really working out. How is it working out following the mainstream? And look, only because it is getting to a time of day where I feel maybe I should go on a coffee diet for a while, because I think people need me to be motivated to lay these things down. I don't drink a coffee in the morning before I get here on the tape, but I've actually, this is the time of day where I make coffees for my household, so just out of servitude to others, it is my time, and out of congruency to show that I am a man of action and of my words, that when I make a commitment, I basically stick to it. And my routine, if you will, if people were dependent on me as a team member, at the moment my time is required elsewhere, and I say this very conscientiously. So I just want people to know that in terms of time allocation, skills and capability moving forward to be the leader of a large organisation, there's no isms in my employment structure, and I'm very much an equal opportunity employer, even though it's just an in vogue term and quite often used for tax breaks and whatever else. I want everybody's skill set, and I see the inherent beauty in everybody, and I don't want anybody to have been cut down by a world because of the way the world has told them that they are, usually out of their own hurt, that people are trying to cut other people down. But if you've been cut down, it's probably because you are open to hearing from somebody else, and that's actually a beautiful skill and a beautiful trait. And if somebody hurt you along the way and shut down one of your most beautiful aspects, back up a step, and this is where I say we all need healing. And so the first wave for me is to really get a lot of healers, but not just at a interpersonal level, human to human, but at an ecological level, people to planet, to make conscientious decisions that allow us to gradually move away from inefficient systems, or systems that will ultimately pull us down, but to always find a better solution. And I think when we put these things as our island destination and we set out to achieve them, we've got a much better chance of actually hitting that mark, rather than just being reactionary to the tides and the storms, and just trying to sail to stay afloat, but hoping that we wind up in some beautiful destination. I don't think it's a time for passivity, and we need to be conscious, and we need to be focused, and we need to be doing this. And so by watching this, you are, and it's a small step, and you might not feel empowered at the moment that you're achieving anything, but you are. And if you do watch this, I will hopefully get a feedback number, and at the moment I haven't really got any. So if I start to see that people are watching me, and I don't take off, then I understand that I need to shave my head, put the collared shirt on, come back with little script points that I tick off as I go down the line. and I'll reform myself and come back that way. I'd personally rather not have to waste further time rebranding myself to be something for other people, when really continuing on the path that I'm on at full speed and not putting any brakes on and not having to double check my mirrors is probably the more successful way to go forward. And so I guess I'm asking for people to have blind faith in me as a person, and I understand that generally the people that are asking you to have blind faith in them, you know, what is their motivation? You know, that this is the hand they're offering, but what's going on elsewhere? You know, I'm all about transparency. You can see that I'm quite willing to get up and be seen for all my frailty, and always about accountability. And I really want, if people have faith in me, to continue to be this frail and this open and this obvious, and yet also trust that there will be times when I'm a little bit covert because of me as a person in a position of greater understanding in terms of the task that's relevant that I would need to be covert about. I'm protecting some aspect of something that's about to happen, that it needs to be done in a different way. And so again, when you've got faith in the people that are at the top, you can put up with a little bit of no, I would never give misinformation, I'd like to think, but I'd like to be able to say, you know, give us some time. And so there might be times where people feel that I'm dodging a point of information, and I can't see. I mean, I don't see any need for that. But if ever, you know, and I want people to say, oh, well, here's where you said you're always going to do this. No. As I said, we always talk in black and whites, but the reality is the world is a shade of grey, and lots of shades of grey. So there's always going to be, I like to be flexible. And that's Bruce Lee, you know, water can cut through rock, you know, but be flexible, you know, because it's just so much more a successful stance. And so look, sailing those seas, I'm going to wish you a great day. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind always be on your back. Be well.